So some of you may know that the US is known as incarceration nation because despite having only 5% of the world's population, it has 25% of the world's prison population. So it shouldn't come as a surprise then that it incarcerates more youth than any other country in the world. Now, before I go any further, how many of you here have children enrolled in the education system? Okay, so I want you to picture this. Picture getting a call that from your 5-year-old child's school that you need to come down because your child has been involved in an incident. And when you get there, your child is sitting down handcuffed. Or maybe you get word that your 12-year-old has been arrested for writing on her desk. Or maybe your 14-year-old daughter comes home and tells you about an incident that she had with an officer where he asked her if she wants to ride the lightning. In other words, be tasered. So sadly, these are not hypothetical situations, but real life experiences of kids within the US educational system. So for the last 8 months, I've had the privilege of carrying out my fellowship with the Children's Defense Fund here in New York. CDF is part of a national advocacy group whose mission is to ensure that every child has a healthy start, a head start, a fair start, a safe start, and a moral start and safe passage to adulthood. Now, one of their primary areas of focus of research is the cradle to prison pipeline, or what many of you may know academics refer to as the school to prison pipeline. So when Marian Edelman, the founder of Children's Defense Fund, coined the phrase the cradle to prison pipeline, she was referring to a confluence of socioeconomic and political factors that prevent children, marginalized children, from becoming productive adults in our society. Some of these factors that she was referring to included limited access to healthcare, including mental health, underfunded and underperforming schools, a fragmented child welfare and juvenile justice system, zero tolerance discipline policies, and a toxic youth culture that glorifies violence. Many of our youths are arrested for status offenses. And what this means is that they're arrested for offenses which, if they were committed by adults, you and me, they would not be punishable by law. I'm going to bring your attention back to zero tolerance discipline codes that school administrators use to criminalize kids. Schools, which next to the home should be the main environment where kids learn to become productive members of society. These punitive discipline codes, which are available on the Department of Education's website, are enforced by school resource officers. Now, according to the Department of Justice, the number of school resource officers rose by 38% between 1997 and 2007. Given that we're in New York, I'm going to highlight some New York facts for you. Now, in 1998, the School Safety Division was transferred from under the supervision of the Department of Education to the supervision of the New York Police Department. Today, that department employs 5,200 officers. 5,200 officers. Now, this is actually more officers employed in this division than in some police departments in other states. This means that we have more officers to police our kids than they have officers to police adults in some states. Many of the students who are pushed out by these punitive discipline codes are students of color, from the LGBT community, and students with disabilities. The NYPD Open Data Act legislated that NYPD publishes its data quarterly about incidents occurring within the school environment. It clearly shows a disproportionate bias towards Black and Latino youths. Just to give you some quick statistics, Black youth make up 27% of the school education system. However, based on that NYPD data, 60% of the incidents involved Black youth. That's just to give you an idea of where it's at. So students facing disciplinary actions are often sent to alternative schools. Now, these alternative schools are usually subpar and doesn't provide the necessary content and climate for the students to maintain their education track. So what does happen is that the students easily fall behind in their coursework, which leads to disengagement and then dropping out of school. Research shows a clear correlation between suspension and low achievement and dropping out of school altogether. Students who drop out are 3 times more likely to end up incarcerated later on in life. Advocacy groups and some school administrators have been trying to introduce, and to some extent been successful in introducing restorative approaches into school discipline codes and within some individual schools. Advocacy groups and school administrators have been trying and to some extent been successful in introducing restorative approaches into the school discipline code and into some individual schools. But this is a problem for the entire society. It's a problem for anyone who has a child or relative in the education system. On that note, I'd like to encourage you all to become a part of the solution. By being more vocal in your schools, your communities, and to your elected officials. Because at the end of the day, when we punish our kids, we're only punishing ourselves.